Welcome to the Mystery Font. I am host of Mystery Font 42 Ope Intuit. My name is Tim Cameron. This is a camera obscura, pinhole camera. Oh yeah. Bleep blop boop bloop. What would you do if it came to you? If the capable aid came through? I love you. I love you. Who are you? Carry to love you. I love Mystery fall. There are a number of different chambers and portals within the mystery font, and I'm discovering a number of envelopes, pockets, pathways. I feel like it may be the trail left of jump rope. Transit by a jump rope. Vocalizing and finding something that feels like a supplementary, optional, and accessible fascia that I don't understand. I'm just coming to start to interact with. That has brought individual one in resonance. Not quite resonance, not all the time, but Burgles is just through this portal. And through that winding hall, here in this semicircle panopticon, I can see the outline. I can see the outline of Donald J. Trump, I believe. Or potentially the prevailing hypothesis is this. There is some figure, a relic, a residue, some kind of artifact of a transition between when any of our vaunted and heralded and respected and deferred to and wondered at in celebritious speculation, sort of public political figures, just any of the grand, amazing, faultless, well, I don't mean to be snide, actually. Life is difficult at times, and people are going through incredible collective trauma right now. We're going through mass collective trauma. We are all in an abusive relationship with the falsehood. And that artifact is either Donald Trump or the falsehood, or a place in between and sort of an artifact of a changeover where the falsehood slipped in, and obviously, as always is the case with with any of the thousands of attacks that the falsehood has promulgated again and again and again and again and again, the card of the falsehood, the calling card of the falsehood once again. Well, I think somehow we've invited an almost snapshot. It's moving, but it's very, very slowly moving, much like Burgles, I think, is what I'm coming to understand. Not sure that they're the same kind of arrival in terms of how what's showing up visually. I'm not sure how it's coming here. And the room glows a bit red. That chamber, it seems to heave a little bit, like it's a flag that's sort of waving, like it's a tent. I can't tell I don't think there's any way to know how big that chamber is. And I think it's so delicate how this is all coming here and not tearing everything apart, or at least leaving feces and blood as the last grand meeting place of the imagination of democracy, where I think I know that he was at. At any rate, maybe we have a resonance of the falsehood. Maybe there's something about this figure, because if we have a resonance, an image, some document, evidence of the falsehood, maybe there's something in there that is differentiated, or that we can find in if we can find others. Because whether we find out, Marjorie Taylor Greene corrects the record about something she's supposed to have said, and of course, it's strange, we never expect it, but when we ask, say, did you say that thing? So often, it's really the twist we never see coming. It's always the pernicious falsehood. And it's just diabolical. How could the falsehood always, it's almost like the falsehood goes back in time. Is the falsehood traveling back in time? That's an uphill climb, I think. That's a weird one. The question here is partially, assuming that this is Donald Trump, I believe this is Donald Trump in front of St. John, the church where he stood holding a Bible upside down and talking about the greatness of the country America, with a strange casual nature and an entourage of supporters of his team. But it may be the falsehood, or again, it may be a fluxus. It may maybe a nebula between, maybe just artifact in some sense that has evidence of both. A morph, an opening into which, maybe in this moment, maybe neither one of them is there. It's just a turbulence. And I suppose the danger is that is just a hope, or a credulous, credible to this credulous, to this credulal, that might be something I see as meaningful, and so it's appearing. Intuition is telling me that I'm partially building that as a representation of that may be a postulation of what I believe Virgil's is. That may simply be an extended resonance, that it may be a 1. That makes sense. Uh, well, I'm preparing to record a new version of a piece of music, development, a new, hopefully a definitive version. And it's about, for me, it's about allowing the conditions that are almost here to emerge. I don't always know where I'm going. I have to start somewhere. I know that I will know. I know that I know even if I can't think of it or can't name it and have confusion about something. Intuition. Hokum is really maybe seeped directly into the walls, like not the same, but like how narcissism slips into the glove of capitalist society since it capitalizes upon human need and vulnerability and fear, and how the world would be very, very different, and not at all a utopia, but about halfway there or more, to just easier, better, and kinder. And what is about to emerge? What of the things that might be tuned or invited or denied or excused or new under the sun, if I can tell. Tune in or open. There's something about this place that has tranquility almost all the time. Even with big noises and cars. That was the line. I think I nailed the line. I think I memorized it perfectly. And scene. I think we're all figuring out how to respond to an American politician simply calling human beings vermin. Because I believe there are some people who think of that as somehow attractive, that very clear red flag of a fascist dictatorship looming. Hopefully is catalyst for people to recognize the need to wake up and dial in to help white supremacists and Christian nationalists get health care or accountability if they're having issues with needing to try to spread bigotry and terrorism in America. It is an existential threat. I mean, when a group names themselves with a Ku Klux Klan slogan and grabs another one for good measure, or ill measure, what are we to say? What are we to know by that except what is shown to be important? And it seems to be havoc. It seems to be evaluation by Donald Trump, possibly, to damage as the most valuable thing. The ability to cause havoc and fear, and the sense that there will be terrible damage. And as he and the Heritage Foundation and Charlie Kirk and Stephen Miller and those 80-some neo-Nazi, Christian nationalist, Ku Klux Klan, thug, terrorist organizations that have put their name onto websites with a conspiracy spelled out before the fact. They are trying to coerce us to accept their aggression as an acceptable fact, as opposed to accept it as a threat that must be dealt with, hopefully without anyone being hurt. But this is the particle that decided we'd be more comfortable if we attacked the people that helped us live here. My light-skinned ancestors who came here, at some point people with my last name started enslaving people for a time. And how is it, Marjorie? Do you remember, is there a journal in the family about how you wept tears about save us, save me, show us how to be wonderful like you are, you beautiful people so free, before you turned the word against them called savagery and gave them poison wool blankets and stole this land? It's the particle that screams propriety and clutches pearls with white suspicion and calls other people numerically less if they're not white. It's the worst terrorist particle on Earth. As bad as anything else that's ever happened on Earth. And the thing is, we don't have to feel bad as human beings, any of us, if we process this. I mean, while I didn't enslave anyone in my lifetime, I benefit from white privilege. And there are all kinds of ways that we all know that power is handed on and generational trauma is handed on and terrorism is handed on. And the lie that it wasn't so bad is really damaging. The lie that we need to hide the past from our children rather than introduce the horrible things and the diseases we're passing on in some sense, or the processing of which we are asking for help with as new generations come along and can help me and you and all of us. We have to process American apartheid, or the world is not going to survive as a place with human habitat. We have to, for certain, wipe this fascist distraction from the map and get those people infested by this sickness help. And because bigotry is a disease, there's a tolerance paradox, and it's that we tolerate anything but intolerance. And we can foster human family if we trust that Elon Musk is confessing to wanting to sow havoc or gaslight for power with that threat. Because demonizing human kindness is a nightmare idea. That's an idea that Andrew Tate might like. That's a nightmare idea. That's an idea that that every fascist dictatorship, that every fascist takes on, and underfoot. We are actually I think we know that we never profit. We never profit from violence. We always have to, it always gets worse. And if the point is that we need to figure something out and learn something, and if the point is that good people and decent Americans don't loot and steal, then I think white Americans need to realize that whiteness and white supremacy and patriarchal terror has been the looting and stealing of people and lives and communities and nations and potential for a habitat that's sustainable for us on Earth. That we are barely surviving. And we're almost at ocean collapse. We can't be distracted by people demonstrating in court that they don't have the moral character or maybe even intelligence or emotional literacy to know how to have a conversation. We need to be able to interrogate our heroes, the people we depend on, including ourselves, and including the people that we would never question. Because we trust and verify. I think it's going to be all right if we realize that we are one. Kindness. Come. There's one spectrum. And it's probably good to think about Fred Rogers talking about his mother saying, look for the helpers. Because people finding minuscule and harrowing things about incredibly rare surgeries tertiarily related to communities that are being scapegoated by extremist right-wing neo-Nazis. And utter degradation of our standards of decency, utter degradation of our standards of how people in government behave. I'm not sure if the congressperson who just tried to challenge someone to a fight is potty trained or not, or if he has been cleared on just sort of he knows what consent is, or if he challenges everybody who has a critique for him to physical violence, or if he takes that kind of shocking boundary violation into spaces as well meant to damage everyone that depends on those important spaces and what is done there. But that's an attack. Either that person is having an episode, or that is a premeditated attack. That's completely unacceptable behavior. That's like Marjorie Taylor Greene behavior. and what the actual fact. We don't have time to be distracted by neo-Nazis putting on little clown shows to distract and enrage and break up Americans' executive function. To essentially waste time and distract, but also to be always trying to provoke. Most often entirely or largely false grievances. MAGA retrader greed has always been, long before it was called MAGA, the KKK, the particle of white supremacist patriarchal terror hate, is a cheat. It is inferior. If there's ever a group of people on Earth who were acting inferior, it's the people who have been calling ourselves white. And again, the idea is not that we need to wear a scarlet W. Well, I'm just saying we can be accountable as human family for what this privilege has been built of as we move through a culture of abolition, to reform, to have peace officers that are safe themselves and safe to be around. That there's not a system built to create havoc and warlike conditions in our country. We have to reverse the absurd technicolor militarism, because the streets are not the RoboCop NFL. We are the reality distortion field end. And in a few decades, a right-wing theocratic fascist dictatorship is arriving unless we apprehend the people crafting this malicious spasm attempting to take over and crush America. If not for all the violence and menace and fear and terror and pain and all of the things, all the happiness lost, it's just that we're strong enough. We're far more than mature enough and strong enough and gifted enough, all of us, to deal with the things we need to deal with to process our American apartheid. And if we expect kids to cheat and expect people in our lives to cheat, if we expect people in our lives to lie because it's smart and we foster that, we fester that, we fester and flay our own lives by just competing to eat dogs before they eat us, in sudden attacks whenever we feel like somebody is threatening our home because they are asking if everybody else in the neighborhood also has safe water, and the threat of like, oh, well, we're trying to make redistribution of wealth, you know, right-wing fascists for my whole life have been admonishing everyone virtually for a demonized, stereotypical communist idea of redistribution of wealth, a cartoonish idea of this, when redistribution of wealth is a thing that happens. But these things need to be done well and sustain, in a way that's sustainable and fair. And also, it's about fostering human family in the future. It's about sustainability together. We don't have to keep creating a world entirely based on terror. Capitalism, as we do it, is based on terror. It makes American families invent homelessness. It makes people throw away their dreams before their teens. It makes people throw away their hope before they have a chance where somebody is asking them, what do you think? It's already gone because we crush and beat creativity and intuition out of people, in large part by demonizing trauma responses and self-regulation behaviors that don't look like sitting quiet in a chair for 5 hours, or things that are totally antithetical and unhealthy and devastating to nervous systems that could be active or following their own proclivity. We can field and be a fielding, like a sounding, a measure, a reading, a sounding of the reality distortions that we participate in, all of us. And it may feel like a huge pressure to try to dig in right now to save democracy from a fascist, right-wing, theocratic dictatorship that will institute concentration camps and mass slaughter, genocide, and harm that we can't imagine because we wouldn't want to. And because that iceberg has set a course for America, we need to prepare to heal those murderers and get them help. And to anyone not already at that havoc place, we need to build bridges, because the lie is that we can't fix things. The lie is that we can't heal. The lie is that we're not strong enough and evolved enough, intelligent enough, and honorable enough, and deep enough to forgive and to be culpable. Wouldn't it be good to be able to talk about? There will be generations that can have conversations after processing the horrors that went before our generations. And it's an ongoing thing, of course, but like our society moves forward and there is, subtle reframing and shaping as we move forward in time. And we have a chance in some ways like we haven't had before, because the havoc of a dark triad predator has been sowed and is being sowed with total abandon and a bit of curation and not necessarily sitting on the pedal doesn't mean that we haven't been through 17 ringers a day. We're going through collective trauma that's miraculously bad. And we really need to remember hate and violence is literally going to make it worse. Anything that you think it will solve, it will literally make it worse. It will make the pain that you want to take away more violent, and it will invade more parts of your life. It's not a threat, it's just how those things work. because what we sow comes up. We're the reality distortion fielding. I think I'm going to record a new version of 6 feet of separation. I think that's what we're going to do. I'll probably pause the stream while doing that, but we'll see. This is the mystery font, the front semicircle panopticon of a former dentist office built 83 years ago.